Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. I have here today a good friend of mine, Darren, that I've only just found out. I've never actually met face to face because we've been chatting online for 10 or 12 years now, I think it is.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So this is a monumental moment for us. I've interviewed Darren before. Daz, would you tell people a little bit about yourself, your background and what you're into?
My background's quite interesting. It's just from my origins. My origins are of an international basis. My family tree is as diverse as Sweden, Scotland, Wales, England, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Barbados, British Guyana, Portugal, Sicily, and Nigeria. So because I have all of these genetics, all of this history, it gives me a unique take on the world, which isn't so much bland as, I'm not getting at people, but just the British perspective. And
the Little Britain point of view.
Yeah. And because my father is an immigrant from Guyana, or known as British Guyana, I see what he has to go through on an everyday basis. My mother is half white, half Nigerian.
Okay.
Her mother was from a part of Manchester called Swinton. Okay. So I even have a unique take on the Liverpool-Manchester thing.
Listen, I didn't know you had mank in you. Everything else is fine, but fucking hell.
So I have a lot of perspectives based on that. And then on my own personal journey, I have learning disabilities. I have dyslexia, dyscalculia, and because of that, I am like Oliver Twist looking into the tavern. I'm sort of disconnected with what is normality, whatever that may be. So because of that, I've had my own struggles. Which I'm fine about saying because this is a thing for people to be inspired by. I've had 2 unsuccessful suicide attempts, one of which is actually, looking back at it, absolutely hilarious. So in a strange gallows sense of humour. And because I've survived that and I've gone through counselling, it's just given me this very unique outside, inside view of this city, of this country, and of humanity.
I mean, that's whenever we're talking. Originally I would have said we were always talking kind of conspiracy theory, and then that sort of grew, really, didn't it? It was more just an alternative view of things, right? What's the mainstream narrative not talking about? And that's really where we've been talking for years, isn't it?
Yeah, that, and obviously the human condition, because we both look at it, you look at it on a very deeper level, but we both are fascinated by why people do what they do. And the strange behaviour, the idiosyncrasies, the hidden stuff that people don't want to really reveal about themselves. But it's sort of like this dark shadow around them. Because just like you, I know people that are pretty dark. So it's just Liverpool street life. And then where I'm from is an area called Toxteth, which everybody knows about, which has its reputation, some of which is deserved, some of which is put on it by other parts of the city to make themselves feel better. And because of all of this is how I view life in a very unusual, maybe unorthodox way.
For people outside the city who who probably like Americans, Australians, I think most Brits would know, there's a racial element to saying Toxteth is the worst place as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. And within Toxteth, it is divided into 2. So it's sort of, if people look at North and South Korea, you've got a parallel. The parallel is a major A road. And one side of it is very multicultural. So it's white, black, Arab, Somalian, Eastern European. And then another side of it is majority white, Scouse working class. So there's tensions that still exists there.
Even just within Liverpool itself.
Yeah, within Toxteth itself. So when you meet someone from Toxteth, they never say Toxteth. They say, I'm either Liverpool late or I'm Dingle.
Dingle is the one, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm Liverpool late. So that's, again, that division. And growing up and thinking, well, why are them people different to me if we're all the same postcode?
I've just gone back to door work Don't ask me why. I don't know why I've done this. Like a social experiment I'm running on myself. And this issue of the darkness that we have here in Liverpool, and it's over the water as well. It's a very, very similar culture. Obviously, you've got like Birkenhead, Wallasey, Liskeard, all that as well. It's not better. There is a darkness here, and I heard you say there's darkness around people, and that's part of Liverpool street life. And we all just accept that, don't we? That like it's part of this area, this culture. I've taken 12 years off. I haven't done the door in Liverpool since 2008. So the last place I did the door was London. So it's actually been more like 15 years since working in Liverpool. It's a nice city. It's one of my favourite cities. And I would say I like the culture here. I think the people are good. Generally speaking, quite charming. It's quite an easy sell for tourists. But the terrible, terrible darkness here. What do you think that's all about?
Well, as we like the work of Jung, and you appreciate his work, it's rather ironic that the latest Batman film was largely filmed here.
It's really strange, that, isn't it? Probably the darkest Batman film ever.
Yeah,
largely filmed in Liverpool.
Yeah, and the head of the Gotham City Police Department, the GCPD, their headquarters is the Liver Building, and the memorial is at St George's Hall. And what basically I'm trying to put across is that Batman, like in psychology, I came to this conclusion: humanity is split into two.
Right.
You're either Batman or you're either Superman.
Right.
Now, I am like Batman. I'm always prepared for the worst, and I'm always prepared for the worst scenario to happen. So by that, when it happens, I'm in the zone.
Yeah.
Now, Superman always sees the good in people. Yeah. And he always wants the person to be have redemption, sorry. So that even goes for criminals. So Liverpool is definitely like a Batman type city. It's definitely Gotham, where you think for the worst and you prepare for it. And it's a strange paradox, because Liverpool people give more to charity than any other city in the United Kingdom.
See, I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised, because there's that ethic, isn't there? Like, we're anti-elitist. You should help each other. Yeah. Like, you should try. Like, it's part of the value system here, and if you don't, you kind of end up outcast. Yeah. You should be down to earth, salt of the earth. If somebody needs help, you should give it to them. And largely, you can rely on people here to do that. Yeah. But they might also kick your fucking head in.
Exactly. So the reason for that is, if we look at epigenetics, Liverpool and the Wirral, you must probably have this more in your genetics than me, was founded by Vikings. Now, the name of Toxteth comes from a Viking called Toki.
Does it really?
Yeah. And he basically claimed it for himself. Right. The word Tranmere is a Scandinavian Nordic word, and a lot of people in the Wirral have been found to have Nordic DNA. Now, a really weird thing is the legendary Thor's hammer. I forgot what it's called now. I should know. Watch Marvel films all the time. The original hammer. That is rumoured to be buried just south of West Kirby.
Oh, and Caldy,
yeah. And a Norwegian, like, I don't know, modern version of Indiana Jones team, they cordoned off a section of that park and done certain tests.
Sorry, it's Thurston.
That's right.
Thorsta Stone.
Exactly.
Thurston Hill, yeah.
So it was mentioned in The Guardian many years ago. For those people that are listening, if you want to do a little pause and go online, The Guardian talked about like the police done a perimeter around it and allowed the Norwegian excavation archaeological team to start doing tests. So they believe even Thor's hammer is based on Merseyside. Right. So there's something maybe coming from the Vikings. And then obviously Liverpool's history was one of, what can I say, extreme capitalism for about 150 years, where there was this Gilded Age and they were on top and everybody else was at the bottom. There was no middle class. So because of that, it gives people a anger, a toughness, and maybe even the ruthlessness.
So people think of Liverpool, and Scousers think of themselves as socialists, super left.
Yeah.
You know, we've got La Casa, the communist meeting house there. My grandfather was a card-carrying communist. But as you've just said, as a result of prospering from the slave trade, it was a super capitalist city, full of billionaires. I had Lawrence Westgaff in here interviewed, and he was talking about it. But people were extremely wealthy.
Yeah, this was like Dubai in its day.
Right.
Definitely. This was like high rollers.
Yeah.
There was even, maybe Lawrence talked about it, but there was even a petition in Parliament to change the capital from London to Liverpool.
Really?
That's how much money was being generated for a time in this city.
They were balling, weren't they?
Yeah. So what there is that the other contradiction with the city, and I'm guilty of it myself, I would say I am socialist in a way, but I've got my own unique hybrid type of style. But then I love designer clothes.
Yeah.
So how can I be...
But that's Scouse.
Yeah, exactly.
That's intrinsically Scouse.
Yeah,
I'm super socialist and down to earth. Check out my Versace man bag.
Yeah, and then with the football... Like many Liverpool fans, I'm closing my eyes when I say this, Richard. I dream of a certain Kylian Mbappé wearing that red kit in Anfield come August this year.
Okay.
And to get Kylian Mbappé, I have to sort of go against my socialist principles and pay him something about 500 grand a week basic salary.
That's insane.
But because I get Kylian Mbappé, I then can laugh at the blue side of this city.
Yeah.
I can laugh at...
You can lord it over them.
Of course, Manchester City, Manchester United. So again, it's that contradiction.
It's a little schizophrenic, that, isn't it? I mean, maybe we are here in this culture a little bit. There's a schism there with two different sets of values that we're running at the same time.
And then if you deal with that word, like you said, a lot of people that suffer from that mental illness often do have violence and do have issues of aggression and high anxiety and paranoia and just social isolation. So I've always told people, Americans especially, they say, like, what is Liverpool like? And I've told them I've lived here, barring a brief time in London, North London, the majority of my 45 years. And I've told them I can never understand it.
Yeah.
It's like looking at a lighthouse in the fog.
Yeah.
You can see the shape of it, or you can't see the details.
Yeah.
And sometimes the fog is clear if the wind comes, and sometimes it can be dense. And that's what Liverpool's like. It is a mystery, an enigma. You love it, you hate it. It reminds me of a Gil Scott-Heron song, Home is Where the Hatred Is. And it's sort of like that. I love it, and it gets me down sometimes. You can be walking down the street and somebody will be trying to agitate you. And you're thinking, right, do I have to like now go all Dark Knight on this guy?
Do I have to have a fight and be all aggressive?
And it's like, wait there, I'm a 45-year-old man. This lad's in his 20s. I've never seen him before. Why is he giving me the vibe like he just wants to go crazy on me?
Just before I came here, a guy walked up to me in the street, 22 years old, in a trackie. And he said, mate, can you call me a taxi? I haven't got my phone. So I pulled my phone out and I was like, this guy's going to try and snatch this. Called Delta, got in the taxi. It was absolutely fine. He genuinely didn't. But it was totally 50-50 as to whether he actually needed help or whether he was just trying to get my phone out of my pocket.
What you're doing, you're tactically positioning your body for either talking to the minicab
I'm going to snatch it back like this, Dad, and belt him with the other hand.
Or do an uppercut or a kick or something like that. And you're like, what's going on here? You're in a good Samaritan mode, or you're in a Punisher mode.
Exactly.
You know
it's really weird. And we're from the same city, you know, we're the same people, we're the same, you know, that's Liverpool, isn't it? And
the other thing with this podcast, what will get attention is some people will see it as heresy, because this city has its roots in Southern Ireland. I'm sorry, Dublin, the Republic of Ireland. And when you go to Dublin, and especially the south of Dublin, especially where Conor McGregor's from,
Crumlin,
you see Liverpool.
You do.
That is Liverpool.
100%. I agree.
That attitude, that cockiness, that swag.
Yeah.
Everything I say is funny.
Yeah.
Everything I say is right.
Yeah.
And if you don't agree with it, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're either for me, you're against me.
Yes.
And then because obviously Ireland's highly Catholic, they criticise, Catholics, they criticise everyone else, but they don't criticise themselves, or they don't analyse themselves.
Right.
And that is a trait within Catholicism.
Yeah. So sort of a solipsistic tendency. Yeah.
So you're the sinner, I'm not. And that is something that's within Liverpool as well. I see it with mates who are, again, let's go back to the football, who are Evertonians. And Everton have the embarrassment of spending the most money in the past 10 years in world football without winning a trophy. Oof. And I've said, well, why is that? What is going on with the organisation? Because the other people across the park, my team, we've got organisation. So why are we organised and you're not? Do a compare and contrast.
Yeah.
And they won't even compare and contrast because their loyalty is so ingrained to that thinking of, I cannot question my own team.
Right.
But then they pay to go to the game, they get frustrated.
Yeah.
And it's a Groundhog Day. It's a repeating season after season after season.
Yeah.
So again, it's a very interesting city. Also, as you would know, being a global traveller, you could be in Indochina and you'll meet a Scouser in a rice field. You know what I mean? So this city also is centrifugal force.
Yeah,
and
it throws people everywhere.
Because some people can't deal with this anymore. Yeah. And then you'll find them in a bar in California.
Yeah.
My favourite story of a Scouser is that my friend's father-in-law saw a really good deal to go to Moscow, of all places, about 8 years ago. And him and his wife went. This is just after New Year's Day. And they're in Moscow airport. It is a blizzard. And there's a man selling newspapers. So he goes up to him just to find out where the taxis are. And then the guy goes, "You are?" And then my friend's father-in-law goes, "You are?" And he goes, "Where are you from?" So he goes, "I'm from Chilwell. Where are you from?" He goes, "I'm from Kirby." And
in Moscow.
Well, yeah, selling newspapers. So basically it was the old story of that he had to, for whatever reason, leave very quickly. And the first flight was Moscow. And then he met somebody and he's living there now and all of that. And he said, shook his hand, and then Dr. Zhivago, he just disappeared in the snow. And then my mate just got in a taxi what is a Scouser doing selling newspapers in Moscow airport?
Yeah.
You know, so that is the surrealism of our city. And because we're a port, we look out to the world. Yes. So we're always looking out. What is it? America? What is Australia? What are these places? So it's no other place in the UK. It's it may be close. I can hear the people watching this in the future coming back to the past, which will be our present. The people of Glasgow, I can hear them kicking off a bit, saying, well, we're just like that. And yes, Glasgow, you are wonderful and you are brilliant. So so maybe Liverpool and Glasgow are the same.
They are quite similar, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
I've lived in Glasgow, and Glaswegians are very, very similar to Scousers in a lot of ways. Super friendly, dead nice, might stab you. You mentioned Jung earlier. Of course, there's this apocryphal tale, we don't know if it's true or not, where Jung dreamt of Liverpool.
Exactly.
And dreamt that it was the pool of life.
Yeah.
And we have a statue here to Jung. I can't get that verified properly, whether that actually happened.
What happened was Jung had a dream. He never came to the city. And it links with, this is where my dyslexia has an advantage, people. In terms of linking dots and joining dots, that is rock, which is called Uruhu, I believe. That is its native Australian name. That is where all our dreams are connected. So they believe that when we sleep, we are connected via this interdimensional Wi-Fi to that place.
Right.
And then that place acts as a corridor to where the dreaming is. And that gives us inspiration, and it makes us ponder who we are. And without dreams, we would all, and you would notice someone interested in psychology, an expert, without dreams, we would all go mad.
Yeah.
Because it's a decluttering, it's a defragment of our psyche. So one of the things that I think Jung was saying is that Liverpool is also one of these points,
right,
in terms of this intergalactic Doctor Strange Wi-Fi that we also connect to with the dreaming as well. So he says that it does have a spiritual element. And then what he said, if Liverpool falls, humanity's over with.
Right.
So it has some sort of like very strong connection with us as a species in a spiritual, magical way.
It's a powerful place, for sure. It's a powerful place. And I suppose anything or anywhere that's powerful, it's got good and bad elements, but they're accelerated. Interesting that you mentioned Conor McGregor and Crumlin, you know, the south of Dublin. I lived in North Dublin for a while, but I had to go to the south of Dublin for the gyms and that. And when I was back on the doors, I was just thinking, wow, who are we as a people? Who does this look like, first of all? Dubliners.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was thinking about, my heritage, I have travellers on my father's side, is there's a bit of a traveller sort of a vibe as well with Scousers, even though everybody's landed and settled.
Yeah.
There's the honour system, a lot of concern with honour, a lot of desire to fight, a tendency to take what might not necessarily be yours if it's not tied down, and just being a bit cheeky with everything.
Yeah, it's an old school system in a metropolitan liberal 21st century world.
Right.
And what we're now seeing is because, and a lot of Scousers don't like this, but I, as somebody who's a product of outsiders, I do like the gentrification of the city. I do like people that have studied here in higher education that have said, no, I'm not going to London. I'm going to use the internet. I'm going to use my own business acumen, my education and my discipline. And I'm going to try to make something here because I like it here.
Yeah.
And these people, they bring a different, fresh perspective. And it means that the city does have now this youthful vibrancy that comes from outside. And I think that it will benefit the city, but there's always romantics that are scared about it will dilute who we are and what we are. But we have to remember geographic areas change. The East End of London at one time was a refuge for Protestant French people, Huguenots, I believe. And then that then became a refuge for Jewish people suffering persecution in continental Europe. And then it became a refuge for Afro-Caribbean people, and now it's a refuge for people from the Indian subcontinent and from Eastern Europe. So things develop and change and modify.
Fluid, yeah.
So nothing stays the same. But I always think that Liverpool will still have that identity because the football is a major link from the past to the future. That's why I tell anybody in the city, even if you have no interest, it's just a sociological experiment or something to understand where you're from, go to the game at least once a season, because you will be in pubs that people went 125 years ago.
Right.
And it's mind-blowing and it's humbling and it's nice because there was somebody 80, 90 years ago that feels just as passionately about that one thing that you do.
Yeah.
And the other thing with the football, it doesn't come with a dogma like, say, going to a church or a temple or a synagogue does. It's just a game and it represents the city. And that's all there is. Yeah. And there is ideological differences between the blue half and the red half. But as I say, going the game, especially going to Anfield, my favourite, is wonderful. It's the modern, it's the old, it's what Liverpool could be and should be.
It's interesting. When you mentioned Batman before, I flashed back to a conversation we had, I think 10, 11 years ago, where we were talking about the control of of perceptions, and we were actually talking about the Heath Ledger Batman movie.
Yeah.
That was one of our first conversations.
Okay.
And that led me, because the specific conversation we were having was what Christopher Nolan was doing in that movie. And
The messages he's putting out there.
The messages he's putting out there. And I wanted to ask you, do you think that with Christopher Nolan, he's just playing with different archetypes, or is there something purposeful in what he's doing there?
Okay, this is a disclaimer. This is my view and not the view of Richard Grannon or Liverpool Podcast Studios. So if Warner Brothers or the team of Christopher Nolan wants to get at someone, get at me. I'll be the lightning rod. Basically, my perception of Nolan is he has made a deal with the power structure, whatever that might be. Some people will call it Illuminati. Some people will call it military-industrial complex or military-industrial entertainment complex. And what he's done is he revealed things about surveillance in The Dark Knight. Also, one of the more frightening things was this forum I went on where it was American current high-level soldiers and retired military, and they were saying to what level the Joker was in terms of his military expertise.
Right.
And they whittled it down to that he was a ranger with around about 11 years experience, and he had served 6 of the 11 in combat.
Right.
Because of all the planning and thinking and the methodology, the use of weapons, the guerrilla tactics teaching with the grenades in the jacket, all that type of thing. So the Joker is like a military trained person that wishes to take his anger back on America, but that's not implied in the film.
Right.
And then there's another bit about justice, and with Harvey Dent and what should justice be? Should it be rather fascistic, or should it be rather like what it is in terms of democracy? Should we go through a process where sometimes the guilty guy escapes because they've got the best lawyer?
Yeah.
So I remember Ian Duncan Smith, the Conservative MP, he went to watch it, I believe, with his daughter at the time, and he said how disturbed he was by the film. Yeah. So that obviously is now getting into like political power structures. So I just think they've gone to him and they've said, okay, Christopher, make films that we want you to make, but we will give you the budget. Right. Because the other interesting film is Interstellar, where at the very beginning, Matthew McConaughey's character, who is a former astronaut, is annoyed that the curriculum in the school states that the moon landings were faked. Right. And he was going to the form teacher of his daughter and the principal to say, well, I'm part of NASA, I was. You're saying the organisation I was were lying. And he said, yeah, they did it to bankrupt the Soviet Union as a psychological Machiavellian master plan. And he was just annoyed with it. So I watched Interstellar in the cinema and I could see people were like looking at each other going, what? Is that true? So after that, he does Dunkirk. And Dunkirk is basically propaganda for the British World War II effort.
Did you like Dunkirk?
No, because
I found it numbing. I didn't have a fucking clue who anyone was. You had 3 young white lads with black hair who all looked exactly the same, mumbling to each other. Even, who's the Shakespearean actor who's in it? Kenneth Branagh. I couldn't understand what he was saying. Yeah. Everything was mumbled. Everybody I know loved it. I was seriously underwhelmed with Dunkirk.
Well, the alternative theory with Dunkirk is they were surrounded by obviously Germans, and the Germans could have just used heavy artillery to just destroy them. And what there was a man who was the brains of the German operation called Martin Bormann. And Bormann was very interested in money and the future game, what came next, 3 steps ahead type kind of fellow. So he made an alleged agreement with the British that there would be a gentleman's agreement that they could take all of their troops from Dunkirk, but there would always be a line of credit between Germany and the City of London.
Really?
Yeah. So that's why the Germans didn't just obliterate them in Dunkirk. They could have easily, because if you look at Dunkirk, it's sort of like a crescent shape.
Yeah.
And they could have easily just used artillery.
And all the lads who are waiting to be picked up, you mean?
Yeah. And just got rid of them. And that was, I think, was it 35% of the British military at the time, soldiers?
It was a huge, I don't know what percentage, but it was a huge amount of
So
active infantry, yeah.
So Martin Bormann came with that idea and it was agreed. And that's why a lot of alternative thinkers claim that after World War II, Germany, in a really short period of time, had better life standards and better quality of life generally than the UK.
Yeah, it didn't go through the same process that it went through after World War One.
Exactly.
It actually got together pretty well.
Pretty corporations that are still with us today. So that's what they reckon. But if people really want to know, the man who was part of that is Martin Bormann. And the film, because obviously a lot of people aren't like me reading and everyone's busy these days and got a million things on, is the Guy Ritchie film, The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Oh, I haven't watched that.
That looks at something called Nazi International,
right?
Which is basically, what did the Nazis do after World War II? Because everyone thinks Hitler just blows his brains in a bunker in Berlin and then the ideology dies. And I don't think the ideology died. I just think it went somewhere else.
Right.
And then Marvel have hinted at it in a film called Captain America Winter Soldier, with a group known as Hydra, in which they drop the white supremacy bit, but it just becomes an organisation of fascism and control. And one of their main leaders is played by Robert Redford. So those two films, in an easy way, explain what could have happened.
There was the, when you mentioned before about the Joker and his potential hatred of America and being almost like an archetypal domestic terrorist, the one thing that I remember that we discussed at length was the Joker dressing doctors as insurgents and insurgents as doctors.
Yeah.
So friend was foe, foe was friend.
Yeah.
And there was a point in the film where I think the Gotham police nearly shot what they thought were insurgents, but they're actually doctors tied up.
Yes.
And they were forced to wear these masks and they nearly killed them. And there's a lot of, in the movie, a lot of inversion that happens, things being put upside down. Even one of the iconic scenes is Batman hangs the Joker upside down.
That's right.
It represents like the tarot card of the hanged man.
That's right, yeah.
For a moment. There was so much in that film that was so on the nose. I was like, either Nolan is winding people up deliberately, or there is some actual messaging going on.
Yeah, there's definitely messaging in that film in terms of, the man he decided to play, Bruce Wayne, in the 3 films, played American Psycho.
It's a really interesting choice, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when he was being Bruce Wayne, he didn't change from Bateman. He played Bruce Wayne as Patrick Bateman.
That's right,
basically.
Yeah, that's it. So these films do offer an insight. And one of the things that I've brought up in notes to you is around films to look at. So again, I'm dyslexic. So if I read the book, I have to read it like 3 times, cover to cover, page to page, to make sure it goes in there.
Right.
So in some ways, it's a harder process, but I appreciate the book more than some that would read it once.
Yeah.
So if you could just put that PDF up for me, sir. What you see on the screen, viewers, is the first of 3 films that I recommend that you watch to get an understanding of what Richard was putting across around the importance of directors and the message that they give the masses. This is a classic film from 1927 called Metropolis. Now, it is available to watch for free on YouTube. It is rather old-fashioned in its presentation, but do not let that turn you off. You can read the synopsis synopsis, the plot of it on Wikipedia to get an understanding. But basically, this film in 1927, made by the legendary German director Fritz Lang, explains how in the technological future of 150 years, the elites will use technology as a means of manipulating the masses. And then the masses then, based upon this, have to then come with a countermeasure. The ending is somewhat very insightful and inspiring in terms of what he is trying to do. But the aim of it is people need to intellectually get off the couch.
Right.
They have to start looking at the means of production, at the individuals in charge, and say, how does the structure work? And does it benefit me?
Yeah.
Does it benefit my family? Does it benefit my community?
Is that what, I haven't seen the film, is that, you think that's what the film is directing people towards, is questioning the systems of control?
Yeah, because what happens is the main lead, as you'll see, is a robot cyborg that inspired George Lucas to make C-3PO.
Okay.
And it is a cyborg that is in the form of a woman, and she tries to infiltrate the working classes to cause dissension and manipulation for her masters.
Right.
But due to her, the cyborg having artificial intelligence, this is all in 1927.
Yeah.
She decides that her makers are actually wrong. So I won't spoil the end, but it's a very clever, intellectual take on what ordinary people need to do.
Right.
And there needs to be, and I'll elaborate more on this in our conversation, there needs to be this thing of we need to not look at the world as what we want it to be. We have to look at the world in what it is.
100%. It's interesting looking at this, at these pictures. You have a female face in most of them in a domineering position, and a few of them she's actually split. She actually is represented as having that split, like Two-Face from, is he called Two-Face?
Yeah, Harvey Dent.
Harvey Dent from Batman.
Yeah.
This is interesting because it made, from the Jungian point of view, this is anima possession, anima possessive control.
Yeah.
Taking over what is a city. If it's one city, it could be all cities. So it's interesting looking at it from that point of view, trying to penetrate the archetype there.
So the rumor is that Fritz Lang was speaking with people who were at the top of German society within the corporate, industrial, political sector, and they were telling him that they were planning for the world to be like this in 150 years. So basically you have an elite set of people who are cocooned from the everyday stresses that you or me have to go through.
Right.
And they're not planning 5-year plans. They're planning 150-year plans.
Yeah.
They're planning for their descendants to still be on top.
Yes.
Because if their descendants are on top, they will be remembered.
Yeah.
And that's a form of immortality.
Yes.
So this is why you see statues, a lot of statues in the city of these so-called great and good people, and plaques and streets named after them, because it's all about that legacy.
Yeah.
I don't want to be forgotten.
Yeah.
And that is how the elitist thinks.
What a bunch of fragile fucking narcissists.
There you go.
Just die and get out the fucking way. Let the kids take over, you pricks. Just a slightly off question. Do you think, there's a problem now with men being less masculine and people becoming more feminized? Do you think that city living is part of that? The fact that we've become urbanized, maybe it intrinsically fosters a feminization process?
Oh gosh. Without being controversial to get this blocked from YouTube, I think I like a saying that is in Islam. And the saying within Islam is, everything is the will of God.
Right.
So the Islamic view of life is that all your trials and tribulations are made by the Creator to deem if you're worthy. And I think everything we go through in life is just that it is this, how can I describe it? I had the revelation once. So I'm walking to a train station near where I live, and it's July, and there's been a monsoon, really heavy rain, and I'm walking through this public footpath, and there's no one there, and then I see on the turn this very huge beetle, and it's been like gushed out of its vegetative area, which is fenced off, and it's on the concrete, and it's struggling, and it's trying to get a grip of going through this uneven concrete, and it's slipping and it's struggling, and then eventually it makes its way by the fence and back to its muddy or environment. And at that moment, I realised that, without being arrogant, not in a Kanye West manner, but I was representative of God. And me, who I am, was the beetle, or all of us were the beetle.
Yeah, as the observer, you're God.
Yeah.
Embodied in your life, you're the struggling beetle.
Yeah, that's it. So God looks at us like that struggling beetle. So we can, like Russell Brand says a lovely thing about, you can have a cat and you can have a laptop and you can be on the internet, but the cat has no fathom of what the internet is.
Yeah.
But the internet and the laptop are in the same environment as the cat.
Yes.
So maybe that's what we are in terms of God, and what God does to get us to get to that spiritual level of enlightenment, like Buddhists say. Certain struggles and certain things come with that, and the examination of what is a man, that then has reverberations. It emancipates some people, and it makes them feel free to go, like they can wear an item of clothing from the other gender and they can feel liberated, but then another person can then feel threatened by that. But then because of that compare, contrast, that reverberation, it then as a species makes us more aware of what and who we are. Right. And things aren't stagnant. So I just look at it in that Islamic way, that everything is the will of God.
We are always reverberating on the same level, because I just read Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, and I released a TikTok video where I was talking about Islam, and I got into a few conversations with Muslims through that. And it got me thinking along, where's the overlap between Islam and Buddhism? And it's all around suffering, the nature of suffering, the purpose of suffering, and then the sort of the choice to be. Because we say, well, why do we suffer? And maybe that's the wrong question, because the suffering is the point itself. Yeah. That's the point itself, through which you can begin to have a hope for transcendence. But it is interesting what you say. Like if in Islam, everything is the will of God, then you're suffering because that is the will of God. That's what's written.
And something for you to contemplate. You've said that you've recently gone back to the doors. So you could have a situation hypothetically where you could be dealing with the aftermath of quite a violent fight, and an ambulance comes, and the individual that's being attacked is in the ambulance, and then you suddenly latch eyes onto like this very attractive paramedic, and then she becomes your wife.
Right.
So because of that suffering of that individual, and then the trauma of what you've dealt with, all the chaos, all the shouting, everything, that's led to you meeting somebody special. And
that's karma, isn't it? That's cause effect karma.
That's it. Yeah. So if we can look at the other film as an example for people to contemplate and watch, this film is an absolute masterpiece. It has a stellar all-star cast, and it explains why we in the Western world live in what I would say much better conditions than other parts of the world. And it is a summary of Henry Kissinger's impact on our existence. So basically a fictional Middle Eastern nation based on Kuwait, I would say, has a new progressive leader that wants to take his nation in a more balanced geopolitical manner. He doesn't want to be on Team America no more. He wants good relations with everybody, but Team America doesn't like that.
Right.
So then Team America is determined to create a coup d'etat and bring in his idiot brother who just wants to wear designer clothing and party in the south of France. And George Clooney's character is an experienced operative in the Middle East based on a real man called Bob Bear, who helped with this film. And he is given the task of creating this coup d'etat. But because he then goes close to this very clever, British educated philosopher king, he is impressed by him. So he's then going to his superiors to say, he's actually not the enemy. We could actually use him to usher a new type of ideological, political understanding in the Middle East, and it would be cheaper than the war machine.
Right.
But then the war machine's like, well, all our stocks and shares are going to go down.
We can't have that.
Can't have that. So one of the best director commentaries ever, because Steven Soderbergh sort of chickened out to do it and gave it to his lead assistant and said, I've got this great cast, Clooney's in it, Matt Damon's in it, all of these great people, but I don't want to meet the head of Hezbollah in Lebanon. So do you want the gig?
Yeah.
And then obviously, because it's an all-star cast, he got it.
Yeah.
But then he had to meet the head of Hezbollah in Lebanon. Exactly. So he talks about that within the director's commentary. One of the interesting things maybe for you to consider from the director's commentary personally, he said, never take helicopter flights. That is the number one easy way of sabotaging and bumping someone off.
I'd already got that tip from storming Norman Schwarzkopf when I was a kid. I really liked him and I read his biography, and he was in 4 helicopter crashes, and he said, never, never, never take a helicopter, because that's how they kill people. That's how they get rid of people.
Yeah, so this film is an epic. It's actually filmed in location, and it's on the streets of Washington, D.C., Germany, London, I think Kuwait, Dubai, and it should have won Oscars, but because it was a very uncomfortable film, it's sort of ignored, but a brilliant director's commentary.
One of the messages in this film is that war is profit, and that there is an effort to keep war going because it can be profitable.
That, but what it also talks about in a very great scene is the fact that for us to be here right now in general safety, it takes a 12-year-old boy who has no access to education to be in a mine in the Congo to get natural resources on the penny that then go to corporations to make our technology. And that's how the world is based.
Without wanting to sound like a fake guru, super right on progressive type, just another left field question. Do you think as human beings we can live knowing that? You know, you sit there, you have your Netflix, you order your Uber Eats, but we know that it's at the cost of tremendous human suffering.
Well, we know that because one of the things I'm guilty of as a traveller, and I'm sure going abroad, and I'm sure you've had it, we love when our British sterling stretches.
Yeah.
So we love to go to somewhere like, say, in the early 2000s, like Thailand, and it's like, wait there, I can spend a tenner and this will last me all day.
Yeah.
I can have my breakfast, lovely breakfast. I can have my lunch. I can do things. I can go to nightclubs and it's costing me less than a tenner a day.
Yeah.
And we love that reality. Like, I'm personally looking at either the end of this year or next winter going to Argentina.
Yeah.
Because Argentina has a first world system, but it was like what Thailand was in the late 90s.
And they have a bunch of Nazis there as well, don't
well,
they?
yeah, but they're all dead. They're in Bariloche. They're all dying off now. But yeah, so Argentina, first world transport system, first world food, safety, sophisticated, just as what you would see in Valencia or in Seville.
Well, that's natural, and I don't think anybody could just ask you to do charity work on holiday off the cuff. I was sort of asking if, as human beings, when we spoke about the dreams and the interconnectedness that we all have, maybe my point is like almost like a communist point. If some of us, if we're one family,
if we're one human family,
and some of us are still suffering, can any of us rest, or do we pretend to, but we're riddled with guilt and anxiety, and that shows up as anger and aggression and so on?
Now the danger is we're all in clans naturally, and we're either team black, team white, we're either team Scouse, team Manc. We're Europe, we're Asia, and we're in these teams. So to get that unified thinking, that could lead to naivety, and that could lead to exploitation. So everybody's scared of another side taken over. I've got friends who are Nigerian and Ghanaian, and they get on great. A few days ago, there's a World Cup qualifier between those two countries. The banter between them was ruthless.
Yeah.
You know, like, we're going to beat you, and then Ghana won. And then the Ghanaians were just mocking the Nigerians senseless. So even though you could, and all West African people originate from Ghana originally, and they just spread out. So I think it can never be. I think the only solution to what you would like is if a new philosophy came from scientifically advanced extraterrestrials who have a system of life that does not incur finance and incurs a togetherness of philosophy, a technological base that is obviously free energy.
Yes.
And then food in abundance, and then obviously a heavy notion on psychology, on looking at oneself, because if oneself is fractured, that fracture could then connect with something else. Because I have a belief system that mental illness causes mental illness in other people. And I've often seen, ironically, that if somebody cares for somebody with mental illness, they can actually become more ill than the person they were caring for.
100%. It's almost like demonic possession. Or
something. Sort of like that. So I think the only artificial intelligence, I am hearing people say that on YouTube, you know, the forward coming back into the present, which is the past. But that is based upon humans building it.
I agree with you. Every time I look at Marxism, I actually had another go at the Communist Manifesto last week. I don't know why I was feeling masochistic. Every communist, Marxist impulse that I have, whenever I run the simulation long enough, I'm like, this is a sci-fi novel. The only way this could be implemented without humans murdering each other, because it's beyond us.
Yeah,
Marxism is beyond us.
Easy.
You have to have aliens, and those aliens would have to be forceful. They'd have to be like, you will do this or you'll be killed.
I don't necessarily believe that. I believe that if technological wonder is presented to us,
we would submit.
We would just go, I want that. Okay. I don't want a Ferrari anymore.
Yeah,
I want a Klingon bird of prey.
Yeah, man.
That's what I want.
Me too.
Cloak and let's go. Let's party. Let's go.
I've got a cloak, a Klingon bird of prey.
That's it.
I don't need anything else.
That's it.
But yeah, I've always sort of, like, reading Marx and reading those ideas, I'm like, this really sounds like the premise for sci-fi, because, you know, as you said with artificial intelligence, who's going to distribute the wealth? Who's going to distribute the work without us becoming
biased?
Resentful?
And everyone's biased, and everyone suffers from nepotism.
Of course.
And everyone has favourites.
Yeah.
And even if, again, AI would be then made by humans.
Well, then I could pay you to alter the algorithm of the AI.
Yeah, and then the AI could now resent the fact, like a child sometimes resents its parents.
Yeah.
About, like, all my traits, all my personality comes from your mistakes.
Yes.
So we would need a neutral outside species to come in that could introduce a new philosophy with technology and wonder and say you've got one chance and one chance only. If not, we'll come back in 10,000 years and we'll go like, all right, we're in. What do we need to do?
Yeah.
And then it would be like a new philosophy. So can we look at the next film, please? This is...
I don't think I've ever even heard of this.
Gosh.
How'd you say that?
Bacurau. This film, people, is a director, as Richard was saying, that is definitely trying to tell us something, and something is happening in the nation of Brazil. So the film is about a village that is in the interior of Brazil.
Yeah.
And it is a harmonious village, and the teacher of the infant school is teaching the pupils about how to use Google, particularly Google Maps. The teacher finds that for some reason the village has disappeared from the map. And when the teacher does a further search, all mentions of the village are no longer on the search engine. So that's perplexing, and what's going on? And then other strange things occur where people start seeing UFO type craft flying around, not huge. And they're like, what is that? And people are saying, is it a drone? Are the UFOs? Is this why it's gone off Google? Are the aliens going to land and reveal themselves to us? Then suddenly livestock is released and goes running wild. So now there's an element of sabotage happening. And then a couple from Rio de Janeiro suddenly arrive on trail bikes, cross bikes, and they're not really welcome. They're not really welcoming to the people in the village. So what the long and short of it is there is an international select group of people that go around the third world or the developing world and they murder villagers for sport. And by doing that process, it gives them a corporate ruthless advantage. It gives, so this inhumanity means that in the corporate world, they no longer have softness. They become more ruthless.
So it's sort of an initiation discipline to keep them strong.
Yes, in a sick way. But what happens is that what they don't realise is that the village has a history of fighting invaders. So the people, there's a little museum in the village, and the people then raid the museum to get the machetes, the spears, the axes that their ancestors used centuries earlier. And then they basically trap these outsiders with the technology and basically win.
Awesome.
And
sounds like my cup of tea, that.
Yeah, it's a very heavy film, but the director, it's won awards at the Cannes Film Festival. So that's where it got my attention from. So I was thinking, this director's saying something about what's going on in Brazil, which is quite frightening. And then we know about the elites in terms of Epstein, in terms of Gaghan, in terms of Harvey Weinstein, Jean-Luc Brunel. These people, what these people are up to, what they really like. We know that Epstein had some mock Babylonian ancient temple on his island.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, very prominent on his island of Little St. James. So these people are there. And then The Guardian revealed, like House of the Plot of Moonraker, Epstein was talking to leading geneticists about creating a new species of human based upon his DNA. And it's like, okay, then so this is who Prince Andrew's partying with. You know, so this is what the elites are. And like, I will talk more about who these elites are. But again, it is up to the ordinary Joe, the ordinary Jane, to be aware of who these people are, to join the dots, to see what directors are saying. But again, we're in a very busy world. If you've got teenagers and you're worried about who they're hanging around with and you don't want them taking drugs and you want to make sure that they're doing the homework and then you've got your own, because I haven't got children, so I haven't got that demands.
We have a lot more free time, don't we? Yeah.
So I recently went down a few days ago to see my godsons in another part of the UK. And, you know, their parents, my friends, they are totally trying to balance the jobs. They're trying to balance the home life. And they just haven't got time to do this type of research. But for people that do have that time, you know, spend it. The world is wonderful and fascinating and dark and light. And, you know, get into it, you know. But I guess that's where my dyslexia comes into it.
I know we talked about it a long time ago. Would you ever do a YouTube channel?
The problem with that is without being egotistical, I really get to the point of things. And I think the power structure, the military, industrial, entertainment structure, some of them would be like, right, we can work with this guy, we can talk to him, he can deliver our message to the masses, but then others would be really frightened because part of it is like what we're having. I'm in the studio, this is who I am, I'm in front of you, and this is getting put on a platform that can be seen all over the world. And to get these people from northern Italy, where a lot of them live, and to bring them here and to talk about their history and their spirituality and the belief system, I can accept somebody who is a dark occultist because I'm not a dark occultist.
Right.
I could have a conversation with Mahler and Manson very easily, but some people would be very frightened and have a knee-jerk reaction to that and think, right, burn them on the stake because of that attitude. Right. So it takes a sophisticated approach, and I'm just worried that I might just mess up. And if I mess up, you know, something could happen. It could be like, oh, Mr. Williams was just walking down the street one day and an elephant just suddenly squashed him from 30,000 feet.
I used to think
now to the weather.
Yeah, now to the weather. I used to think that when I was living in Malaysia, I was like, it would be so easy. They'd be like, oh, it was a robbery attempt. It was two rampets, you know, basically their equivalent of scallies on the back of a motorbike. They tried to take his phone. He was into martial arts. He fought them and they stabbed him, and then they just drove off, and that's that. And you think, there you go. There's the end of your little story. And as you say, onto today's sport.
And people who believe this is a conspiracy theory, it's actually not, because the day before Christmas Eve in either 2018 or 2017, a case was brought forward to the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom in front of 3 judges. And it was with this following notion: can the security services break the law if it's for the greater good? 2 of the 3 agreed. Right. Which means that in theory, so the security services can end somebody's life if they believe it is for the greater good of the United Kingdom.
It's a worrying direction to be moving in, that, isn't it?
Yeah, very worrying. And that was just, again, a little piece in the paper. And it was like, now to the weather, you know what I mean? I was like, what? And because it was obviously published in the media on Christmas Eve, who's really reading the paper on Christmas Eve except idiot boy here? Yeah, you know what I mean? That's it. So that's it. So can we go to point 1, please, of the PDF? So people might say, what is the future of this United Kingdom? Well, it is both worrying and exciting, people, because it has been confirmed in an 18-month period that the people that make our legislation, a lot of them are addicted to cocaine. Right. So we have a choice to make. We either just carry on and think it's like good old Clement Attlee days, where we had good, honourable MPs that were here for the greater good, that was going to build the society and the social contract. Or we can say, no, we're in the 21st century. People take cocaine. And if we talk about this and we spread links like this from reputable, established mainstream media outlets, and we then put it on our Facebooks or our WhatsApps, and we talk about this in summer barbecues to friends, it generates a conversation. And eventually the powers that be in Big Ben will have to say, you know what, they're on to us. So we have to either decriminalise drugs or we have to become more draconian with drugs in Parliament, because the hypocrisy is, if a sports professional athlete uses performance-enhancing drugs, there's chaos. People are annoyed. People are angry. What, this man done Tour de France on steroids? This is an embarrassment. There's nothing pure anymore. But then the people who are making our legislation
are cokeheads.
Are cokeheads.
Just for people who might be a little bit naive about what happens to somebody when they get into cocaine, not the first time they have a line, but say it's gone on for they're on a cycle of coke usage and it's like 6, 9 months, 12 months and on. It changes your persona, doesn't it? It changes your decision making.
Does it? You become again more narcissistic. You become more binary. There is less empathy, less understanding. Everything is zeros and ones, good and bad. You like it, you leave it. That type of vibe. So this was an article, an extensive article done before the pandemic, in 2019. So what happened, if you go to the other link, I'm reading the Sunday Times, and the Sunday Times in late 2021 did the same thing of going into the toilet areas of Parliament, doing a wipe of all the surfaces, and all but one of the toilets in Parliament had cocaine.
So they're actually dropping it. They're actually chopping it up on the sink. They're not just scooping it out of the bag like a civilized person with a key. Sorry, have you done coke?
No.
But I mean, that's quite ballsy, that, to just put it out, because if anybody comes in, there's nothing.
Yeah, but it's accepted. That's what the Sunday Times was trying to say.
They're saying it's like a cocaine culture. Like, what are you doing in there? I'm having a line.
Do you want one, mate?
Do you want one?
Yeah.
Chop you one out.
There you go.
I've just had lunch. I mustn't. I'll be shitting for days.
I've got to meet the Queen, or I've got to meet some representative.
Imagine that. Meeting the Queen like that. Right, Your Majesty, what do we do? What do we not do?
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
So this is from an American outlet. And the Sunday Times released it, I believe, because they wanted a debate to be started around Christmas time. Deliberately, they could have done it in November, they could have done it in October, but it was deliberately done just before the shutdown, before Christmas. So it would be in people's heads. They would go home and they would start these conversations with family and friends when they would gather. Like, if you read what the Sunday Times said about Parliament. So people didn't grasp it, because I think obviously we're in a pandemic. It was the first Christmas where you could meet people, really. So I think people were more jovial. But again, we are living in a society where our elected leaders are openly using cocaine. And when they went to the Speaker of the House of Commons, I think a man called Lindsay Hoy, he stated that he would take it to the Met, but if people were found to be using, it should be done under a mental health protocol where they should get help. So if a young Scouse man is doing county lines and he is found on a train going to North Wales with a hodl full of cocaine, they're not going to say, we'll give you counselling.
No.
He's getting a custodial sentence.
Yeah. He's definitely going inside.
So again, when the Speaker of the House of Parliament said that, I said, right, this is widespread. This is really widespread.
Yeah.
So again, and we're in a situation at the moment where we are in a conflict with another country that is a nuclear power, and we need people not on the AO.
Yeah. That's bad for them to be on the AO,
Yeah.
for sure.
So, and then
I'd want them to be sane and clear and focused, I think, at this point.
And then the media is hinting again of alcohol dependency within number 10 with all the parties, where it's any old excuse just to get drunk.
Yeah.
So now we've got alcohol issues and now we've got cocaine issues.
Yeah.
We're in an international crisis. We need leaders that are measured with the words and with the tactics, and it's not. And again, if we accept our elite football players, our Olympic athletes, or people that do Tour de France, if we accept that they should be drug tested, we need to apply that to our politicians.
100%.
Because this is mainstream media, Associated Press.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think it's an interesting issue. Like, obviously, we do know in history Churchill was alcohol dependent. Even in World War II, he was drinking a lot every single day.
A lot of port.
Adolf, I don't know whether he snorted coke or he had it injected into him, but he had cocaine and steroids. Steroids and cocaine, so he's basically a Scouser.
Yeah.
And obviously these
And there is a Hitler link with Liverpool, did you know that?
I did, yeah. Just tell people who might not know about this.
Well, in between the wars, Adolf's brother was an academic at the University of Liverpool.
Is this confirmed or is this?
No, it's true.
Oh, yeah.
And his brother lived a quarter of a mile from where we are now.
Yeah.
And Adolf, over 2 spring summers, visited his brother.
Yeah.
And he fell in love with the northern town about 12 miles from here called Southport.
Yeah.
So what Adolf was going to do if he ever took over the UK, thankfully he didn't, was he was going to make Southport the new capital of the UK.
Right.
And Southport, I believe, was never bombed by the German blitzkrieg in World War II.
Liverpool was, but Southport, no.
Yeah, so that was it. So there's even, and that was Toxteth as well.
Right.
So his brother was living in Toxteth, ironically.
And apparently Adolf had never done Beak until he was an after party on Breck Road. And he was like, this is fucking great, this.
There you go.
Inject this into me.
I'm going to rule the world.
And then he invented meth.
That's exactly.
Yeah. Or a derivative of meth, some sort of amphetamine, didn't he, to give to his soldiers?
Yeah, all of that. Yeah, he went on. And what Britain was going to be, quite worryingly, was it was going to be turned into a huge brothel. So when he had the divisions...
Because our women are so beautiful, is that why?
No. So what it was, no comments. So what it was, because this is the international travel of people, I don't travel as much as him, so I have to keep it like, I love you ladies. I haven't got as assortment as him. So when his divisions would conquer bits of Asia or Africa or God knows where, as a reward, they would have come to the UK and they would have just basically been debauched.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was a way of basically putting the ultimate insult on Britain.
Was to turn it into a whorehouse.
Yeah, that was it. It's just going to be a huge whorehouse, like a version of I don't want to say beef is a whorehouse, but it would be like head in a stick.
Yeah, like a party zone.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
brothel sort of a thing.
Yeah, so that was the ultimate plan.
Yeah, God, they were crazy, weren't they? They were
crazy, but at the same time, worryingly highly intelligent.
Yeah.
And when you look again at Martin Bormann and stuff like that, you're like, wow, this guy is thinking 3 to 5 steps ahead of anyone. You know, little bases in Antarctica, things going on in Latin America. Very, very deep, very interesting man.
They were smart, but they were sick, weren't they?
Sadistic,
I think that was the weakness ultimately that played out, was that as intelligent and as ambitious and as disciplined as they were sick. They were sick dudes.
So can we look at number 3, please? So this is an answer to maybe your research, Richard, in terms of the human condition and why we do the things that we do. Now, according to Darwinian evolutionary thinking, you can only get a resemblance if it's linked to a bloodline.
Right.
So there's an exact descendant family tree.
Okay.
So a French-Canadian professional photographer from Montreal realised over the years that he had photographed identical twins, doppelgangers, who actually weren't related.
Right.
So this goes against Darwinian evolutionary thinking, that you can have a really close resemblance.
How could he know that they weren't related?
Because he obviously did his research. He asked them.
I
So
see. Oh, okay.
he would go to, say, Los Angeles,
Yeah.
and he would then meet somebody in Toronto.
Okay.
And he would ask them, do you know someone in Toronto? Do you know someone in Los Angeles? And they're like, no. And what I'm coming to is, I believe that there was some sort of catastrophe, maybe millennia ago, some sort of natural disaster.
You mean like Graham Hancock's Younger Dryas?
Yeah, that type of thing.
12,500 BC.
Yeah, so there was a time where we were highly advanced.
Yeah.
This is proven through a device that was found in Greece called the Ankyphoria mechanism. That was a box, a mechanical box, and the user could know longitude and latitude and know where they were in any point on the planet. And they could only recreate that from about 1998 due to the engineering being, the metalwork being so precise.
Right.
So there was a time in our species development where we were highly advanced, but some sort of natural disaster happened and it basically turned us into hunter-gatherers.
Sent us back to the Stone Age.
Yeah.
Again.
So what I believe what happened was, again, if you scroll down again, is that one's a fascinating one, them two. There could have been some sort of decision by a highly advanced race based on maybe 12 to maybe, I don't know, 13 individuals, because we see that numbers always come through our religion, our spirituality, that there would be cloning made.
Right.
And then them clones would then mingle with the other clones, and then they would mingle with them. So what happens is it expands to a point, and then eventually it can only expand to that point.
Right.
And this is where the photographer noticed that, wait there are identical people, but they're not related. And
so 13,000 years ago, you'd have clone D175, clone D178, and then you bang out a bunch of them. They do evolve and they do mutate a little bit, but they kind of stay within a certain range.
Yeah, they can only stay within that range.
Yeah.
So I think the reason why we have these flaws, which were highlighted by a medieval Catholic priest known as the Seven Deadly Sins, is because we're artificial in a manner, living in an organic environment.
You're saying all humanity is artificial?
In a way, like as in cloning, definitely. I think we've got something within our heritage, because for instance, my uncle spent time in Lagos, Nigeria, studying, doing a master's. And one of the things I'll always remember when he returned, he told me, he said, I saw people, Darren, that looked exactly like you.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I've got white in me, I've got South America, I've got Swedish. Yeah. And he goes, no, seen people walking down the street in Lagos.
With your face.
Yeah, well, there it is, there's Darren there.
That always happens to me when I'm in London and I'm on the London Underground. And in London, when it's busy, you're exposed unconsciously to so many faces that it always triggers this thought process where I start going, have we only got so many faces? Because I've seen so many people who look like other people.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, the idea of being inorganic, artificial creatures in an organic environment. Every time I used to take acid, that's what I would obsess over. I'd be like, what are we? Why does it seem to be the case that we're artificial, but the environment, the animals, the plants, the trees around us, they seem to be spontaneous and natural, but there's something really weird about humans.
And the other thing with animals is they don't need clothes.
Yeah.
We need like different jackets for different types of environments. and we're sort of in this environment, but then we're sort of not one with this environment.
But you know what people will say? They'll say, slowly over time we evolved. We started using clothes, and that environmental tool tool adaptation that made us weaker, and then we had to have clothes. That's what they would say.
True, it could be that, because there's evidence of when certain people went to South America when the Spanish were discovering South America. They discovered people in very cold environments in Argentina naked.
Did they really?
Yeah, and they could survive.
They could tolerate it.
Yeah, they could tolerate it. So could we have the next link to that one, please? This is a favourite one. This got me onto this journey, and I was like, so this is quite a hilarious one of these two individuals.
Okay, they really look very, very similar.
That were on the same Ryanair flight, going to Galway in Ireland for just a weekend away.
They both look like warriors from north of the wall. They look like, what do you call them?
Not the others, that's lost. Oh yeah, Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. What do you call the lot from north of the wall?
The wildlings.
Thank you, mate. Wildlings.
Yeah.
They both look like wildling warriors.
Yeah, so people just couldn't believe. So this went viral on Twitter, and people just couldn't believe how they looked, and they're not related.
Right.
And it's just, and I think that's the reason why, like, there's a famous Bowie song that I like, and it's called Always Crashing the Same Car. And I think that's what humanity does. Right. We just always make these same mistakes again and again and again. And I speak to friends about, like, and you must have it as you help people with psychotherapy around romance. Romance has been with us since the beginning. Shakespeare's talked about romance. But people still have this issue with romance, that they either can't get the partner they want, or they can't get the intimacy that they want, or they can't get the affection, the attention.
And dogs don't have that problem. Cats don't have that problem.
Yeah.
They just do what they do. They don't whinge about it. But we get very, very needy and very particular about romance.
Yeah, and it's like, well, Shakespeare's talked about this, the ancient Egyptians talked about it, the Babylonians talked about this. You'd think that like we've had evolution in technology, and like we've had evolution in thinking and education, you'd think the same would be for romance, but we're still as confused by it as we were 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, so so there's something deep within our psyche that is wrong, is not computing right.
Yeah.
And I think that's
maybe we've got some shitty code.
That's where the cloning comes in.
Yeah.
So I think maybe there was a rush to do it. And then you talked obviously about directors, and George Lucas is a major dropper of knowledge done in fiction within the Star Wars universe. And, you know, you have the leader who is actually a dark occultist who uses the philosophy and belief of dark occultism to create this empire.
Yeah.
And Lucas is trying to say, this is what they do, people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Time and again.
Time and
It's
again.
happened. Yeah. Because that's supposed to be in our past, isn't it? It's not in the future.
What is?
The Star Wars story.
Oh, no, that's in another universe.
Another universe, a long, long time ago, yeah.
But the cloning is part of the clone troops.
Right.
And obviously Boba Fett and all of that type of thing. But he's dropping a lot of stuff, Lucas.
Yeah.
But that's what I think might have happened. There might have been some sort of ecological pending disaster, coronal mass injection, and they're like, right, we can't get off world. So they were like, right, rush the genetics, rush it. Maybe it needed more time.
Yeah.
And then it was successful to a point, but then all of our psychological angst and our issues and the things that make this life difficult, that was part of the things that could be perfected.
I see a lot of the problem with romance is that people project the worst elements of themselves onto their partners.
Yeah.
And it becomes this battle, a catastrophic death battle. And it gets very, very, very nasty. very, very quickly. I know that I'm in the area of narcissistic abuse, but I see in so-called normal relationships very, very similar patterns playing out.
Within all relationships, I've never seen in my 45 years an equal heterosexual relationship.
Me neither.
I've seen more equality in people of the same gender. I've seen a lot more equality in people who are gay or lesbian.
It'd be interesting. There will be studies on this to see what the levels of stability are, if the levels of stability are better in homosexual relationships.
Yeah.
I know that there's contradicting evidence. Apparently levels of domestic violence
are huge within gay men, definitely.
And women.
Okay.
It's worse with women.
Okay.
They're more violent. Apparently with their partners. The gay women are more likely to hit each other than even gay men. But yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Gay men, there's a lot of domestic violence.
Yeah. But in the people I know that are from the LGBT community, I see a lot more equality, a lot more fairness. But I think that's what it is. It's like an ego war. It's like we're constantly in an ego war.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So can we go to the next link, please?
Yeah. That was all of them for number 3. Is it number 4?
Number 4, please. Yeah, thank you. So we're now looking at the insanity of who is in a... What's the title of that on the PDF, please? Sorry.
Title is Forgotten Gems.
Okay. Could you just put the PDF as well up on as well? That's great. So one of the things that I like to do is make people aware of who is in the shadows, who are those that are controlling us, and why we need to really look at it and think about it and have these conversations. From these conversations, you know people of a diverse background. I know people who are diverse, and that can eventually maybe flitter into their realm of the shadow controllers, the puppet masters. So my favourite thing, one of my favourite things in a strange way, because I'm a strange person, is Operation Fishbowl. And this was somebody in the United States military had the idea of, let's detonate really powerful nuclear weapons in the upper atmosphere.
Great.
Just to see what it can do.
Just see what happens.
Yeah. Just to see what it can do.
Lad.
Yeah. We're bored. We're what's Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Yeah.
We've done that.
We've done that.
Yeah, just annihilated the city and turned everyone into fried chicken. Let's just destroy the atmosphere. So basically that's what they did. They just detonated vast amounts of over certain stages different strength of nuclear weapons.
They didn't just do it once with a low strength weapon. They did it again.
Repeatedly about 4 or 5 times.
With no idea of what the effect would be on the weather, the atmosphere.
Well, if it would have been catastrophic, it would have eventually had a hole in the upper atmosphere, and all the oxygen would have literally gone out into space, and we all would have suffocated.
Like a balloon.
Yeah.
What height were they doing this at?
Really, I think if you scroll down,
30 to 80 kilometers, I think I just saw there.
Yeah, if you scroll, I think you scroll up, you'll see like a little, there it is there. So that's the diagram there of what they were doing.
Oh.
And this is all declassified. This is what they were doing in the 1960s, people. So what are they doing now?
That is massively irresponsible. They did it over Samoa, Fiji, and the Tongan Islands.
And it was so... one of the effects was it created an artificial northern lights in the upper atmosphere. There it is. There. That's just off a 1.4 megaton nuclear explosion, people.
Why did they call it Fishbowl? That's so weird.
Yeah.
That is so strange.
So that's what the people in charge do, people. And that was from the 1960s, when it was a lot less cocaine acceptability, let's say, like it is now. So you better be frightened about what's happening right now to what they're doing. But yeah, that's one of the most fascinating things that I have ever come across.
I'm astonished that they got that cleared, that without having any clue what that would do. They just cleared it and went, yeah, we'll know after we've done it, won't we?
There you go, that's it. So
It's the only way to know for sure. Just do it, and then we'll find out afterwards.
yeah, so that's one of the interesting things. So if you have if you're a bit bored in a barbecue of the summer and the conversation's a bit dry, and people are talking about IKEA or home insurance, just talk about Operation Fishbowl.
Just lash out a bit of, hey, get on this. Operation Fishbowl.
That's it.
Nuclear weapons in the atmosphere. La.
And that is the American military complex. So let's go to the next link of that section. This one is an absolutely hilarious article from an investigative journalist that found about the #1 secret society of Wall Street. And what newcomers to this secret society have to do is dress as women and do like musical parodies, but mocking the proletariat. So they mock ripping off the masses, how stupid the masses are.
Yeah.
And this journalist just heard about it and got a suit and just walked in. And everybody thought he was one of the elites.
Yeah.
And then he just took some photos of it. And it's just, again, that debauchery, that wildness, that...
You know, I went to private school, don't you? And then I went to private school, and then I was actually applying to join the army as an officer when I was 21, and I could just see them doing this.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. They want to wear women's clothes.
Yeah.
They want to get up on stage and dance and sing. And if they were going to dance and sing about anything, it would be about how stupid poor people are.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's crazy.
Because that's what one does. Mocks the poor. Look at them with their stupid poor faces. Smother me in caviar.
So this was a great article about when he just went into, and the title's great. It's like when I just crashed the secret society.
Yeah.
And all of that. And it talks about these like billionaires. The people here are billionaires. Not the guy saving them, but the people sitting down.
Yeah.
And, there's somebody there.
It does look like him, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just an act. So eventually they clocked after, I think, a second event that the guy was a journalist.
Yeah.
But they had no security on the door because it's such an elite part of Manhattan that sort of ordinary people wouldn't walk past.
Right.
So they were that relaxed. They didn't even have security on the door.
Really?
Yeah.
The arrogance.
The arrogance of it, yeah. So that is a great article there.
That's another one to bring out in the barbecue.
Yeah. And then my favourite one is next. And I have to be very clever about what I'm going to say because I don't want... If you could just blow that picture up with that couple.
Oh, I recognise that nice Serbian lady.
I have to be very careful about talking about these two individuals.
I don't recognise him.
He is the big R of the family of the big R, Mr. Rothschild.
Oh, okay.
So what happened is people, again, being very careful, is that the lady on the left is a world-renowned artist, and she gave a talk at the Art Foundation of the Man to Her Right about her career and what it represents. And they decided to, I believe, deliberately stand in front of this painting. If we could just have a little look at that painting.
Has he got a semi-on?
Now, in the next link, everybody pay attention to Richard's face when Richard finds out the actual title of what the painting is. So that's in the next link on the PDF.
Satan summoning his legion.
Ah, wonderful. Of course. Of course it is.
Of course. So, of all the paintings to stand in front of,
That's the one they chose.
that's the one they chose. And they're both art aficionados.
Yeah.
So it's likely they know what that means.
There's no way that they wouldn't have known what that means. She's the woman who does the spirit food and
Yeah, she does things involving semen, animal blood,
yeah.
and other things, and that's art.
She's a a witch first and foremost and an artist a distant second?
I don't know if she is. Again, to the viewers watching this podcast, I think she's available on Twitter. So make her aware of this. I like dialogue with all types of people, and I think that Richard having a conversation with her would be something very fascinating.
I'd be happy to do that. I'm slightly anxious though that I'm not sure whether she's Croatian or Serbian.
Serbian.
She is, okay.
From Belgrade.
Because if I get that wrong, fucking hell, I will never hear the end of it. So
Yeah.
she is Serbian.
Yeah. So that is, and the man on the right, many people believe he is the wealthiest individual currently and ever in human history.
It's amazing, isn't it?
So that is a man you would just walk past in the street.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So again, it's very interesting. And if we could go to the last link of that one, if people want to know more about her, this is a
Abramović.
Yeah, this is a very fascinating hour-long talk that she had before the photo, before that we've just seen, about who she is and what she represents.
Okay.
So if people want to know more about her and who she is, I find her completely fascinating as an individual. I have a friend that's on the more conspiracy side of it. He claims that he has a picture of her meeting JFK.
Right.
And therefore...
She would have been a child, though.
He believes she's 140 years old.
Oh.
So we've
Yeah,
got...
because she wouldn't have been a child. She would have been a semen in a ball bag. She's not even that much older than us, is she?
Probably. Well, I think she's in her 70s, but
okay.
my friend believes that due
older.
to maybe certain techniques of a
Serbian
Harry
folk magic.
Potter
Yeah.
standard, she could be 140 years old. So she's just a very fascinating person. She does have this connection with the pop world. Jay-Z, Lady Gaga, they reference her, they're friendly with her.
Listen, you know what I can do? Whenever I want to pick up celebrity clients, I just start talking about magic in my YouTube videos. They're obsessed.
Wow.
All the celebrities are completely fucking obsessed. So you do like one or two Aleister Crowley references. Then you talk about Thelema and the discipline of Western magic.
Kabbalah.
Bit of Kabbalah. Throw in the tarot cards. I will get musicians. Some of them fairly famous musicians will contact me. And it will happen within weeks. It's so predictable.
It is, yeah.
You're obsessed.
Yeah, because as artists, they have this inspiration where suddenly you can get something and you get that inspiration. And where does that inspiration come from? So that again links to what I've said before about the dreaming in terms of consciousness, in terms of linking with a monolith in the middle of Australia that happens to be right in the middle of the Australian continent, if you want to call it that, and no other monoliths around it.
It's incredible, isn't it?
So they're aware of this. Like, where does this je ne sais quoi, where does this spark come from? Yeah. And they're more with it. Yeah. So if they're a number 5, let's scroll down to see what that is. So this is around the importance of psychotherapy. As I mentioned before, I have had 2 suicide attempts. One was in 2003. The other one was in 2006. So the 2003 one, I now laugh at because I've had counselling. Right. So I can laugh at it now. So what happened was everybody was being successful, going to university. They had the plan. I was a man in the early 20s of my life. And because I knew there was something up with me, I didn't know if it was a learning disability or if I was just stupid, because I have these moments of inspiration and people say, you're articulate, you're intelligent, why aren't you in a top job? And it was getting frustrating. So I wrote I was living with my parents at the time. I left a suicide note under my pillow and I said, what I'm going to do, the chosen method of it's going to be sleeping tablets, crushed, and it's going to be whiskey. I love Irish whiskey. So I'm just going to put it in the whiskey. There you go, boom, bye-bye. So what I then decided was we're going to have a final meal, like what you have like for people on death row. Yeah. So I went to my favourite chippy out Scouse of me, and I got my favourite chippy meal,
Which is?
Singapore fried rice.
Yeah.
Very, very nuclear.
Yeah.
Because I'm West Indian, I can take it with some chips.
Nice.
And it's a mountain.
Yeah.
So what happened was, because I ate so much food.
Shouldn't laugh. I know where this is going.
Because I ate so much food, it absorbed the actual...
Chippy saved you.
Yeah, exactly.
Shouldn't laugh at that, but fucking hell, lads. These chips are fucking grease.
So I slept for 16 hours. So my mum just left me because she just thought, oh, Darren's tired.
Yeah.
And then when I woke up, I'm like, right, I'm not in the afterworld, I'm still here.
Yeah.
And then I just realised what it was. And then I got the note and just put it in the shredder.
Yeah, good.
And that was it, you know
God
what I mean?
bless Singapore fried rice and chips.
Just over portion from Kenny's Chippy in Eggborough.
Thanks, Kenny's Chippy.
So that's just saved my life there. So basically, we've all got like this trauma, and then I've gone through psychotherapy and seen different therapists.
So do you believe it's passed down through the generations?
Yeah, definitely.
It's genetic echoes of pain.
Definitely. Because the Bible says something that the sins of the father will be given to the third and fourth generation. And I've looked at my family tree, and there could be a reason for that. And it's like, okay, then I understand it now.
Yeah.
And stuff. And I think that if we go back to that page there, the first one, it's got it's on the BBC side, wonderful graphics about epigenetics and how this can be passed down through people and such like that. So it's very important that once you reach 30 years old, that you see somebody, you see a psychotherapist. Some people say, I don't need a psychotherapist, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And they're my favourite people that I talk to, because when you really dig deep, it's like, oh, I didn't know that affected me.
Why'd you say 30 years old particularly? I agree with you, but I just wonder if it's the similar reason.
I have a rule. It's called the 25 to 30 rule. And what happens is you're raving with friends at 24 years old.
Yeah.
Everybody's having benders and eating pizza for breakfast and all of that lot.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, one of the crew, one of the collective you hang around with is like, I'm getting married.
First man down.
And it's like, yeah. And you're like, wait there, are we going to Glastonbury?
Aren't we invincible? Won't we do this forever?
Yeah. So then one gets married, and then from the age of 25 to 30, every summer is 3 to 5 weddings.
Do any of you fucking know how traumatic this is for a man of that age, watching his mates? It's like being in a little regiment, isn't it? And suddenly like the first one dies, and then you all get cleared out and it is 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
Everyone is gone.
Gone, man. So basically, once you reach that...
You've got this to come, boys. It's great.
So from that, what happened was I wasn't given the talk.
Yeah.
And I think some of my friends were given this 25 to 30 talk.
Yeah.
That in a heterosexual manner as a man, you meet a woman that is a hardworking woman that has a compatibility of maybe 80 to 85% of your personality. Again, this is my own percentile, my own logic and graph.
Yeah, it's reasonable.
And if you can get someone that's at least 85% compatible, go and get her.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, and I'm sorry to say this, but this is my truth, I'm being honest. What I notice is that women 31 years old onwards, a lot of them are damaged. Because a lot of men have hurt them.
Oh, yeah,
and they're the ones that don't get picked.
Yeah.
So...
And it's extremely painful for them, yeah.
Yeah, and there's an old West Indian saying, because West Indians are very blunt and very to the point, that men age like rum and women age like cow's milk.
Right.
And basically that's what it is. I think as men get older, they get maybe more mature, hopefully, and more wise. And I think as a woman goes older, she loses being having that vitality, being that center of attention, because a lot of women is based on the looks.
Of course, yeah.
And in the Bible, again, it says that do not be angry with your elderly mother.
Right.
Because she has rage in her, because she has rage that she is no longer that young, fertile, vivacious woman.
In the Bible, is it?
Yeah, it says that. So it says if you've got a cranky mother who's elderly, or you've got a cranky grandmother, do not be annoyed with her, because she is going through that pain of no longer being young and having that vitality.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things of it. So I recommend to anyone. Can we have the next link, please? I recommend to anybody once you reach 30 to please see that. And again, this is a study again from The Guardian about Holocaust survivors and about depression within the Jewish community and life expectancy within the Jewish community, and about how this, and obviously it's nature. If your parents has gone through a hard time, then their mood is going to then impact you at a very early age whilst your brain's developing. Yeah. But so then you've got the double whammy. You've got the actual negativity of that adults imposing their mood upon you, and then you then have that within you, and then you also have it in a deeper genetic level. Yeah. So in a way you can't really win. But they've even looked at grandchildren who never had any connection with the grandparents, because the grandparents passed away before they were born, and even they have issues of depression, right, and stuff like that. So again, it could have easily come through one of the parents, but again, it's very interesting of that. So, and the last point on that section, please. And this is just a wonderful graphic from that first BBC article on how the adults, it's very powerful when I saw it. It's how the adults can impact the child.
Secondary trauma.
Yeah, so everybody, you might think, oh, I'm okay. I don't break down crying. I'm consistent. I go 9 to 5 in my job. But how do you know you're happy? Yeah. How do you know what you do doesn't negatively impact on an individual? You might be a good manager, but what happens if you have idiosyncrasies and ways of operating that frustrate others, and you're not even aware of that frustration? You're only going to be aware of it through analysis and good psychotherapy. And my advice to you on this is you have a choice. You can meet a psychotherapist, and if you feel that individual isn't clicking with you, go to someone else, and eventually you will meet that right person you will go with, and it's a life-changing experience. Even recently, I was going to another part of the UK, like I mentioned last week. I missed my connecting train from Liverpool to Chester. And then I said, right, what do I do? Do I just say, right, the weekend's finished? Or do I find a solution, like what I was taught in psychotherapy? So I was like, what is the solutions? Do this, do that. No, the time constraints, right? Get a mini cab. So I got a mini cab. It's near £50, but it got me to Chester. And because I got to Chester, I had a lovely weekend. Yeah. And you have to think of the solutions, but you only learn that through talking with someone else who doesn't really know you, who can then observe things. It's like Van Gogh, never rated his paintings because he made the paintings and it was always flawed. The people that would observe his paintings when he was alive were astounded at the beauty of it, because they weren't personally involved within the project. They just saw it for what it was, and they just appreciated it. And that's what the aim of the psychotherapist or the psychoanalyst is. Just the observer giving their opinions on what they interpret and what they see from that individual. So I would say to everyone, even if it's one session, it doesn't have to be deep. You might not have that much trauma, but even if it's one session, just have the one session.
It's well worth it.
And that's it. So let's have a look at the next section, please. We're nearly finished now. Now we're on to the major thing of our reality.
Theme of the moment. Yeah.
Who we don't need to talk about international geopolitics. We don't need to talk about any conflict. We just have to talk about Will Smith and what is Will Smith as an avatar? What does he represent? And maybe was it the act of ultimate rebellion against that at the pinnacle of what he was designed to be?
Right.
So was it self-destructive behaviour meant as emancipation?
That's an interesting take. I've not heard that one before.
So one of my favourite takes, if you scroll down, is a black actress called Tiffany Haddish. And she says one of the most crudest things ever about how Jada Pinkett Smith should... Yes, let me have a look. No, go down a bit, sorry. I'll let Richard read it because I'd love to see his reaction. Yes, that section there. Could you read that section, please, Richard?
Okay. And that's their friend, Haddish said of Rock. As a friend, why would you do that? He didn't even run the joke by her, but she was hurt, though. If she wouldn't have been hurt, he probably wouldn't have said nothing. But you could see he was clearly, and then they exploited it. They exploited her, so he protected his wife. To me, I went up to her and said, you better suck his dick from the back, girl. Jesus Christ. Why'd you make me say that? You better suck his dick from the back, girl. Great. I don't even know what that means. I didn't know that was an option. No one told me. You better put that in your magazine. That's what I told her.
So...
Thanks.
So basically, Tiffany Haddish is this black American woman who is an actress and stand-up comedian as well.
Right.
And she just deliberately went very crude and very blunt in the Oscars to a major outlet, I think Entertainment Weekly or People magazine, about how she felt about it.
Right.
And this is what this whole thing has done.
Right.
Because Jordan Peterson makes a good point. And in a way, he's guilty of it as well. He talks about there are no intellectuals anymore.
Right.
Whereas before we had Jung, we had Karl Marx, we had all of these great minds that was, even in ancient world, Socrates, Plato, we had these great minds, but now there are no great minds. So Jordan Peterson is saying that, but then he's trying to be a great mind at the same time.
Yeah.
So it was just this incident, because the great minds now are celebrities, they're avatars for us. They represent this upward trajectory to fame and money that doesn't entail going through the corporate loops of bowing to the master, bowing to the corporate ideal, but you can still get that money.
Right.
And the Gallagher brothers saying very much like that for
Conor
us.
McGregor.
There you go. So that's what Will Smith done. But I love that quote because she even says, put that in your magazine.
Yeah.
She said something really crude and sexual.
Yeah.
But she says, I want you in that magazine. So she's even using this incident as a term of redemption, to say, I want to express myself as I want, as maybe a black street person, an African-American person from the street.
And that's her
truth, that's her
reaction.
realism, that's who she is. So if you could go to the first example I sent on the email, with just the extra bit, and then we'll come back to it, because I will prove how this was deliberately done as a setup to humiliate it. Yeah, so I put one link there. So as we'll see,
I like Cat Williams.
This is something for everyone to watch about the racism that exists within Hollywood ceremonies And obviously, because of copyright, we can't obviously play it, but people will be able to see it and go on Daily Motion. It is about Cat Williams talking about him being the presenter of the roast of Flavor Flav, that being the rapper and hype man for Public Enemy, who were very black conscious.
Yeah.
So he's talking...
Not like these mumble rappers today.
Exactly. or Travis Scott, who's into the occult.
Yeah.
And has a deal with Nike.
Yeah.
And his trainers
They're not singing Fight the Power, are they?
No, Travis Scott's
They're
Nikes.
singing Suck the Power's dick from the back.
So Travis Scott's Nikes are inverted. His ticks are inverted on his trainers.
It's everything everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
So basically, in this monologue or in this routine, Cat Williams is talking about when he goes to rehearsals for the roast of Flavor Flav. And a roast for everyone is just basically a famous person has jokes mocking them. But this particular roast was racist. So when he goes to the actual events, he says, can we go through the script? What are we going to say? They're like, it's okay. You can just go in your trailer. Now, all the other people who were comedians who were roasting Flavor Flav who were white, they were given scripts.
Right.
So he's like, well, why aren't I given the script if I'm the host? But these are given a script to know how long to speak for, what to speak about. So he does his the event, and he says that the racism towards Flavor Flav was that intense. His teenage daughter ran out of the building, out of the arena.
Really?
Crying due to the racist insults he was given.
These are white comedians saying racist jokes to Flavor Flav.
Under banter.
As banter.
As banter.
But it was way too strong.
Way too strong. So Cat Williams talks about being that annoyed after the event that he wanted to trash his room, is where he was, his dressing room, but he realised that he would take it out of his pay. So he just got a couple of paper cups and threw them in his dressing room.
His impotent rage.
Yeah. But he talked about how they deliberately, in a ceremony to celebrate Flavor Flav, used it to insult him. And he's trying to say within this section that there is something sinister within American, the entertainment industry, that even when black people reach a level, it still tries to insult them on a racist basis.
Which I'm open to and I can understand, but with this Will Smith incident, that was his agency, wasn't it? Or are you saying that actually no, he was encouraged to do that?
I'm saying that they realised that she is a weak point for him.
Right.
And they said, what we're going to do, we're going to have him right on the front of the stage.
Yeah, so we can get access quickly.
Yes, and can we have the next one on that email, please? The other thing is Chris Rock did a documentary called Good Hair, which is about black women's hair in America and the importance of that to black women.
Because I'm glad you're here, because I doing YouTube videos on this is a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
So I've dated, when people ask me about this, and I was like, as far as I know, you shouldn't take the piss out of any woman's hair.
Yeah.
But I've dated enough black girls to know you don't say anything about hair. It's a really fucking sensitive, really sensitive subject.
You do not. The reason for it is, could you just pause that video a minute? Thank you very much. The reason for it is how can I put this? All right, we can use this example. There's a sports brand chain called JD Sports. And that is, for people that don't know, that is where you buy your latest street fashion wear, your Nike, your Adidas, your Puma, your North Face, etc. Every Christmas here in the United Kingdom, they do a campaign. Everybody they use in that campaign is black.
Okay.
So a lot of them are black. So you have black soccer players, football players, rappers, etc. Now, the reason why they use it is because fashion to black people is it's sad. It's a sense of empowerment,
Right.
because economic and social and corporate power is somewhat denied to us. So the only power we can have is our own agency, which is fashion. So we're eclectic. An example of that is Andre 3000 out of Outcast.
Yeah.
He uses strange ensembles of clothing.
Dresses as Robin Hood.
Yeah, all of that. And it's somehow cool.
Yeah.
And he makes it work.
Yeah.
And that is what black people do. Black people get these bits. Origin of hip hop. They couldn't afford studio musicians. What did they do? Sampling.
Right.
Well, let's get John Bonham's drums off Led Zeppelin, and because we can't afford a studio drummer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that is how black people work it. So they get whatever little resource they have, make it cool, and then corporations like JD Sports see it, and Nike and Adidas, and they say, what are the blacks wearing? Okay, then we'll get that and modify it and sell it.
And is that deliberately to sell to the black market, or is it to sell to a white market?
Both.
Okay.
So basically, the thing I'm interested in, and JD Sports, you're welcome to reply to this. I want to know what JD Sports' corporate thing is about black people progressing to a managerial and corporate executive level within their company. Because if you're using black people to sell your wares and make your profits, you have to have the same enthusiasm for them people to be in the boardroom.
And are you suggesting that they don't?
Well, it's up to...
Because otherwise it would be raw exploitation, wouldn't it?
Well, it's up to JD Sports to bring a representative on this podcast to talk about themselves or give a statement. So basically what happens with hair, with black men and with black women, it is a very strong statement of empowerment identity, like the afro in the 1970s. That was because everything was like, you need your hair short and short back and sides. And then the 70s was like, no, I'm going to have my hair as it naturally is. So hair is a big deal. Also, again, going back to the Bible, it says that a woman's hair is her strength. And that is within the Bible. So that is not only for black women. I see it in Liverpool. We've got a huge amount of hairdressers. I think the highest amount of hairdressers per population and barbers of anywhere in the United Kingdom.
We're pretty vain here. I'm very image conscious, yeah.
So that's a big thing. So with black women, their hair is their power because financially and corporate and in academia, they haven't. So you have to get that power somewhere else.
And what you're saying is that Chris Rock did a short documentary about this issue specifically.
I think it's an award-winning documentary called Good Hair.
Because she's the girl with the good hair.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is, for Chris Rock to mock a black woman about her hair when he done a documentary about her.
So he knows perfectly well.
He knows perfectly well.
If I know, he's definitely got to know.
And also, for him not to know alopecia, and she didn't have alopecia, I find that hard to believe because Chris Rock talked to David Letterman, I think in 2011, and said how much, in a joke, how much he dislikes Will Smith because Will Smith gets the roles he wants. And then he said, now...
Pookie, nobody's giving you those.
Yeah. And then,
you're not the zombie slayer. Come on, Pookie.
No. And then Will Smith's kids, according to Chris Rock, are taking the roles from his kids. So he said that's why he dislikes Will Smith even more to David Letterman in 2011.
So there's so I could see a hypothesis building here that I've not heard before, which is that this is something much more deliberate and much more malicious. It had some intent to it.
Yeah.
It's not just an innocent joke.
I think also for the conspiracy theorists that say it was set up, I think Rock... He had a show, for goodness sake, called Everybody Hates Chris, which was about his childhood because he irritated people as a child.
Right.
So he used that childhood truth to make money as a sitcom.
Yeah.
So when Will Smith goes to the stage, he very well knew he was going to get a dig.
Right.
So he deliberately construct made that issue to antagonize Will Smith, to get on the stage, to give him a dig, to then destroy Will Smith's career.
Interesting, which he probably has.
Because
now.
if you look at Chris Rock's body language, if somebody went to the stage to me after saying that, I would have just been like, give him a hug,
Yeah,
or
put his
something.
hands behind his back,
Very deliberate.
and he leaned to the left, like
Yeah.
he was expecting something to hit his face from the other person's right.
Yeah, he's that type of guy that has, even his cadence is very interesting.
Yeah.
His cadence is very, how can I describe it? Very sharp and
Yeah, it's aggressive.
aggressive.
He's like
Chris
a preacher.
Rock.
He's like a
Yeah.
preacher yelling at you didactically, hectoring you about hell and punishment.
Exactly.
But he's talking about hoes and getting your balls licked or whatever in a stand-up comedy.
Yeah, that's it. And I think he's done this before to people. And obviously him being African-American, Will Smith being African-American, he's got an understanding how to push those psychological buttons. And I think he realised what it was. And I think Will Smith laughed at it because what we will see in this thing on the screen now is from 2015. And how this wasn't blown up is beyond me. So the host is called Neil Patrick Harris, who was recently the villain in the latest Matrix film.
Yes.
He was a psychoanalyst.
Yeah.
And he was the host in 2015. And he went to the man in the red suit, who was a British actor, who was also in, he was the principal in Interstellar, who went to McConaughey to say that the moon landings were faked.
Oh, this chap. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, David Alonwo.
Okay.
So he's made a big career. He had to leave Britain because he wasn't getting opportunities, and then he became a huge star in America. So Neil Patrick Harris goes up to him and he says, everything sounds better in a British accent.
Yeah.
Could you please read the following? Now, they know the seating arrangements. Behind the man in the red suit is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who is of mixed heritage, who is half black, half Samoan. And then next to it is Oprah Winfrey. Now, if you look at the screenshot before it's played, Oprah Winfrey already has a tense look on her face.
So does The Rock.
Yeah, because they know the setup is on. They don't know what it is. So what happens is that Neil Patrick Harris asked David Alonwo to stand up and read from a card. And one of the things he says is, due to Annie being remade, nobody would ever see her again. Now, the remix of Annie for that year, the remake, I should say, was Jamie Foxx in the role of the billionaire.
Daddy Warbucks.
Yes, that didn't have a daughter. And then he got Annie out of the foster home.
Yeah.
So what Neil Patrick Harris is saying is, because it was so unrealistic having a black billionaire, nobody would ever do an Annie ever again because it killed the whole line. So
Kill the franchise. Yeah.
So when you see The Rock and Oprah Winfrey, they're utterly disgusted.
Could you play that with the sound down, please, Jacob?
And if you just see the faces, you so he brings him up, and this is all done by people that control the Oscars.
Yeah, please.
You just see The Rock's face.
I think we probably would get away with it even if there was sound, to be honest.
But you just, as he says it, The Rock just has a look on his face like, he's not impressed. You see, even he's
so
like that.
So he basically has what would you call it? Ambushed him.
Yeah.
With a joke that he didn't know he was going to say.
Yeah, and I'm Oprah Winfrey. So you see, he sat back down. So
she is a black billionaire, right?
Yeah. So all it's been designed for is, we're going to get a black actor. We're going to have Oprah Winfrey, and we're going to have The Rock, and we're just going to use it just to
needle them.
Needle them. So that's what's going on in the Oscars. That's the type of thing, because you've got to look at it from their perspective, the people that run the Hollywood film studios, they have to deal with all the narcissism of the actor, the agents, the publicists, the family, the hangers on, the mistresses, the people on the side. So they're like, right, we've got them in this setting where they have to be controlled and responsible. So let's give it to them.
So are you saying they did that with Chris Rock and Will Smith and they didn't think Will Smith would get up and smack him? They just wanted to have him sit there with a pained look on his face and be forced to take a shitty joke.
Yeah, they wanted that because they said, right, he's done a documentary about black women's hair. He would know through having that small pond that is African-American male actors that his wife has had alopecia.
Yeah.
So we're just going to do it. And then Chris Rock's done it because Chris Rock wants further roles and opportunities.
He wants to be back inside.
Of course, yeah.
Do you know Abra and Preach, the YouTube podcasters? They're quite famous YouTube podcasters, two American lads, but their take on it was the joke was meaningless. It was they're African-American. The joke was meaningless. It's fine. You can joke about somebody being bald. And I was like, you really can't, you really can't. And Ricky Gervais has come out since and said, no, I wouldn't have made that joke.
Yeah.
Ricky Gervais, because it's just insensitive.
But
it's not, if she chose to shave her head,
then
that's fine. And she's making a fashion statement.
Yeah.
That would be, I would say you've got a better chance. But if she's got a medical condition and she has to shave her head, that's not on.
But I agree with the stance of what Richard Williams said. And you as a martial artist would appreciate this. He said, I would only advocate that action if Will Smith was put in a physical position where he had to use physical force. He, in my opinion, he should not have hit Chris Rock.
Yeah.
He should have just gone on stage and he should have said, Chris, you see that woman over there? That's my wife. This is her condition. Do you honestly think that's making her feel any better tonight? And then Chris Rock, being the smart ass, would have just been like, and then he would have just sat down. And then Chris Rock would have had the wrath of people looking at Bully, looking for what he is. And then that would have been better. Or if he would have said his acceptance speech, tonight's been the perfect night. It's been the pinnacle of years of dedication and trying.
That's good.
But what spoilt it was him.
Yeah. And just speak a little bit about alopecia and women's, how difficult it is for a woman if she doesn't have her hair.
There you go. And then Chris Rock would have gone like that.
Yeah, that's what he could have done.
No Vanity Fair party, straight home. Just crying alone in his room.
Yeah.
And that would have been it. But you have to control your emotions. I also think there's a dynamic of her, as we've said, as I mentioned before, in heterosexual relationships, of one being the dominance of the other. And I think she just looked at him as if to say, is this another insult to me?
Are you going to let this slide, you little beta bitch cock boy? Go out and defend me.
Yeah, are you my knight in shining armour? So I think what's happened is Will Smith has seen that. But then you see, the reason why this has got so much attention is Will Smith represents something, again, this is me being controversial, what all white people want is the cool but not...
Go hard on this point, because I agree with you 100%. Not just white people, by the way.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Is the cool, non-threatening black man.
Yeah.
That's what Will Smith represents.
Yeah. Wholesome.
Nice, funny,
family guy, funny,
family,
not threatening, not a scary black man, a friendly one,
exactly,
a good one.
So that's what Will Smith has had to do for all of his life. He's from Philadelphia. I don't know if you've ever been to Philadelphia, but Philadelphia is very much like Liverpool.
Okay.
It's very edgy.
Been,
It's a dock city.
Yeah.
It's no messing.
Yeah.
And I think he was discovered by Quincy Jones.
Yeah.
And I think he's had to really curtail his persona, his personality, and who it is.
100%.
Because what he done was the most like arrogant thing, or the most, I don't know, was when he won the award, he still took it. Now,
Yeah.
I thought he was going to, when I watched it, I didn't watch it live, but when I seen it in the morning, I thought he would have said, listen, Academy, I've done wrong here. I can't take the award, but I'll take the title.
Yeah.
So in Wikipedia, when it says who won the best actor in 2022, it'll say Will Smith.
Yeah.
But I never took the statue home with me.
Yeah, it was a weird move that.
Yeah.
It was a weird move to do that.
Yeah, so when he's took it, he's just gone, I don't give up. I'm just taking it.
Yeah.
So that's the real Will Smith. That's the street Will Smith.
So he's forced into cutting off parts of his personality. He's got to cut off the aggression. He's got to cut off any side of him that has any edge or raw masculinity.
Yeah.
Because that's threatening.
Exactly.
And they don't like that.
Exactly.
But then I think at another level as well, I think he's in an emotionally abusive relationship with his wife, and she's coercing him as well. He's trapped in multiple layers of coercion. And that's what you see coming out of him is just frustration.
There's a lot of frustration, a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
She was, she's a tough woman, man.
Yeah.
She used to sell drugs in high school. She admitted that. So she used to go with Tupac. So, you know. So
she must be fairly tough, yeah.
She's a tough, strong woman. That's why she played that character in The Matrix. Maybe the Wachowskis saw that and said, right, you're a general.
Yeah,
That's what she's called, General Niobe.
Really?
So she's a general, you know what I mean? So she does have that strength to her. Have you got any of them other links? So this is in The Guardian about what we're talking about how like black people need to like curtail the character within like the corporate sector and within work and employment. I've been told by like my father that because I have a very outgoing attitude, he was like, when you're in a workplace, don't say anything.
Yeah.
Be the opposite because they will see that as a threat.
Yeah.
And I used to go, no, I'll be me. They've got to accept me.
Yeah.
So one time I was working in a supermarket when I was at university, and I said, right, I'm going to take my dad's advice. I'm only going to talk when I'm spoken to, and I'm not going to say a word. I worked for 4 months with this supermarket. And the day I said, you know what, I'm just going to be me, they couldn't believe it.
Really?
The jaws just dropped the full, like, am I hearing you talk?
Yeah.
And what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And is that your vocabulary?
Yeah.
And they just were totally shocked. I never knew you spoke. And it was just very interesting to see the change in people.
Yeah.
They were a lot more comfortable when I was deliberately not saying anything.
Right.
When I was just quiet, you talk to me, we'll give you an answer.
Yeah.
That's it. And they loved me.
Yeah.
They were like, you're a great worker, you. And I was like, I'm working just the same as everyone else.
Yeah.
But is you're a good worker, meaning you're something else good?
You can say it. I don't. For this podcast, you can go hard on this. Point because I know it's there.
Yeah.
I can't. I know.
Say I know you can't say. Yeah, but I'm just leaving it there because we are in a. We do have our overlords in Santa Clara, and they can delete this and say it's.
But I think the point has probably been we haven't made it overtly, but as far as the Oscars go.
Yeah.
There's to tie in your story as well, there's an expectation of what you can and cannot be.
Yeah.
Stay within these boundaries.
That's right.
You're fine. Step outside of it. Ooh, no, we don't like that.
Yeah.
No, we're not having that. And I think it's a conversation, man. We've got to have. We should at least talk. It's uncomfortable. But we've got to talk about it.
Here's something. Talking about rawness, I'll be raw with this. I've always wanted to say this. There's a person on YouTube called KSI, and he's the same as PewDiePie. He's like multi-millionaire, and all of you follow him. But I would always want to ask KSI, did he look at white Britain? And did he look at particularly white middle class Britain? He really looked into it in a sociological way. And did he say, I'm going to be the type of black persona that white Britain or white Anglo-American world wants me to be?
Yeah.
And if I play that role,
Will I get paid?
will I get paid? And he has got paid, and all power to him, because he saw the way the society is. He's joined
I know
the
you're
dots.
talking about. I think the question's almost redundant. I mean, yeah, I 100% think that he has made that choice, a cynical choice.
That's it. And, you know, good luck to him for that. But I'd always want to know, is that the real KSI we see? Or is that what he's seen? Because he's Nigerian as well.
Yeah.
And Nigerian people are very adept and aware of being in this country and how to play the game and such. You see it in London.
Yeah.
Very affluent people, very smart, intelligent people. So that's what I think KSI has done. He's played the game and he's become a millionaire off it. So it'd be very interesting to hear that. So can we have the next link, please? And that's a great photo.
That is a great photo, isn't it?
And
especially with the roles he's played.
Exactly. And, you know, I have had this, you know, you laugh, people look at it as aggression somewhere, you're angry, people look at it as aggression. Sometimes your anger is justified in how you are. I had it a few days ago where I was in another part of the country and it was in a busy cafe and me and a friend were ready to have breakfast on a Sunday and 3 people left. So what I did to be kind, I used to work in a cafe restaurant. I just put the plates on the bar and to clear the table so me and my friend could sit. The 17-year-old weekend girl working there thanked me for it. She was surprised because she said she'd never seen anybody ever do that before. And then as I was finishing the last plate, a member of the team in the bar just like really gave me loads of grief, saying for me to not dump my things on their bar because that's where they were serving. So as they said that, I turned around to think there was people there. There was no one there. So I was going to say, who are you serving? Casper the Friendly Ghost. But then I said, if I say that, every black emotion is interpreted as aggression.
Also, Casper the Friendly Ghost. That's very racist.
So what I had to then do...
Your mate Casper, was it? Yeah.
So then what I had to do was I had to sort of bite my lip, turn around, look at my friend as if to go, I'm going out of here. And I had to walk out because I know any response that I could have said, I'm trapped. So, and when they came out, they're white, my friend, when they came out, they said, why, what happened? I explained to them. And what happened, it got me so angry because the spite of how the person talked to me, it was a bit too much for what I actually did. It was very spiteful and very, like you're dumping your stuff.
They don't need to say anything.
Yeah.
Say thanks.
That's it. So
say thank you.
So because of all, again, this is why psychotherapy is important. All the trauma, all the past, it's previous things I've had came to me. So I walked out of there and I was like, right, I'm going for a walk. And I ended up walking in the Welsh countryside for about like 6 miles. And then I integrated with nature. And because obviously rural communities drive, hardly anyone walks, the sheep are looking at me to say, What
are you doing,
What are
lad?
you doing here? Who are you?
Who are you, lad?
And all of that. So it was a nice experience and I got close to nature and then I was good. So these are the things. And then now we've got your favourite thing to end the conversation, a selection of memes.
Oh, yeah.
Around Will Smith.
Lovely.
So again, audience.
Is that on the PDF?
Yeah, it's on that. So you can see Richard's reaction to these various memes.
This one I've seen. Jada G.I. Jane. That's hilarious. No, it's not. Do you want me to cheat again? Did I do it right, Jada? Please don't leave me. I should voice memes more. Poor Will. Poor Will. Love will make you do crazy things. Exactly. These tight-fitting gloves have so many stories to tell.
And this actually got a reaction from Morrissey.
The Smiths. What does it say at the...
That joke isn't funny anymore.
And then there's one more at the bottom.
when you get up after spending 46 minutes on the toilet looking at Will Smith and Chris Rock memes, I mean, there has just been a fucking flood, hasn't there?
I had to end it on my Instagram because it can go on and on and on. So I've ended it. So
I was posting them and I really thought they're funny, and then I just said, okay, this has to be the last one.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, there is one man who's really suffering as a result of this, and his career really could be over. And I think with the relationship he's in with Jada, this could be the thing that ends them. If he drops off and he's no longer Will Smith, you know, probably one of the most desirable black actors in Hollywood, if not, who's bigger than him?
I think it will give him an edge. And the reason why I'll give him an edge is because of another podcast who are your competitor, a man called Joe Rogan.
Oh, I know old Joey.
Yeah. He's some American guy. He's bald as well, And Joe Rogan in his old LA studio had photos of celebrities with mugshots.
Right.
Elvis, Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, I remember them,
Jim Morrison, I think, Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
And there's something about America that likes the rebel, that likes the cowboy, that likes the celebrity with a bit of edge.
Yeah.
So I think Will Smith, he may go through these issues in terms of his marriage, but I think in terms of a career, it's going to open different doors to him. So like films like David Fincher films that are quite edgy, he will now get. Scorsese might see him in a different light.
Maybe.
And it might go to that way. I think the one who's the loser is Chris Rock.
Do you think so?
Because he was on stage in Boston, I think 2 days ago, and people were saying, like, what about like Will Smith?
Right.
And he was like, well, I haven't had time to process it.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a comedian,
you got to do better.
That's like
than that.
Water out of a tap.
No, you got to do better than that.
That's like, man, you know, you straight away.
Yeah, straight away.
And he's now like, I've got to process it. And it's like, mate, you're a comedian. Like, you're supposed to be on it straight away.
That's well, I'd put that down to the hyperfeminization of everything. I just think that's a counseling. Like, psychotherapy is good. Counseling is good. Yeah. But it's a feminine energy driven protocol. It's a yin energy protocol. You go into the past, you create a safe space, and in here you heal. Fantastic. But it's feminine.
Yeah.
Stand-up comedy, you're a dick. You stand up in front of everybody like a big cock.
You're phallic.
And you're phallic. And you have to go hard. You don't stop.
Yeah, you don't
stop for anything. There's no
and the other thing now they're trying to say is Chris Rock had a conversation during the lockdown with Howard Stern. He was getting, when it was all lockdown heavy, he was talking to all different celebrities, how are you getting on? And Chris Rock said that he had been diagnosed with a behavioural stroke learning disability, that he can't read people's emotions.
Yes, he's autistic to some degree.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, Chris, maybe comedy's not your thing.
Find another pursuit.
Yeah, maybe be a car mechanic. You know what I mean? Maybe you've made enough money, just retire, go to Honolulu, learn how to surf.
Yeah.
That's what I'd do.
Do something else.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be really, because he can't jiu-jitsu himself out of this. He done a documentary called Good Hair.
People aren't talking about it, mate. I mean, when this interview's released, maybe they will a little bit more. Because your hypothesis, your angle is actually fresh. It's the only one I've heard.
Could we just bury Chris Rock a bit more and put that movie poster for Good Hair on the screen, just to end the conversation, just so
we all know Chris Rock knew exactly what he was talking about when he insulted a black woman's lack of hair.
There you go. Oh, it's got stars on it, so it's so people have liked it.
Oh, so it's is it a movie or
no? It's a documentary.
Oh, okay.
Or is it a comedy? He sort of went on Graham Norton. I haven't watched it.
Okay,
but he sort of stated it was like a documentary. It could be a comedy.
It does. You know what? There's no way he doesn't know.
No.
I mean, if you've woken up next to a girl with a hairnet on, you know this is a sensitive.
Yeah. even Will Mallory does a pack of crisp 50. The guy who does that from Witness or Runcorn. I never used to really watch it. He's married to a black woman.
Yeah.
And he said that he didn't know the idiosyncrasies of it.
Yeah.
So when he was in a salon with his wife who's black, he was going to black women going, that's a nice weave. And the women, because the weave's not supposed to be seen. It's
Yeah,
supposed
no,
to be
it's
natural.
supposed to be their hair. You don't compliment.
Yeah, it's like camouflage. It's like saying,
You
I
just
can
say,
see you.
That's nice hair, not
Yeah.
that's a nice weave, you fucking clown.
You know, it's like seeing somebody who's training in the military and go, I can see you. It's like, no, he's in camouflage. He's trying to be like hidden. So the woman was like looking to like nearly knock his head off.
Yeah.
And then he realised, his wife said, you do not go to a black woman saying that's a nice weave.
No.
It's a disguise. It's an optical illusion. It's supposed to look natural. So you don't know it's a weave. That's the whole point.
But then, we could go on. There is a little bit of a difference, I think, with white culture where you can compliment somebody's fakeness, which I don't think you can the other way. In the other, I don't think it. You could say to a girl, your makeup is really good. The way you've contoured your face is really good, and it wouldn't be taken as an insult. It would be taken as, this is new. This is a new evolution in women's vanity I've found in the last 7 years. Where if you say your makeup is really good, they see the makeup as part of themselves, and so they're happy. That
because it's a compliment of their craft,
right?
Of their artistic knowledge of how to apply makeup.
Yeah.
So that's it. But black women, and he's had a black mother. He's emotionally got aunts and
There's no
sisters.
way he doesn't know. If I know, he fucking knows.
Yeah. So in the end, he's a very naughty boy, Chris Rock. So
he's a very naughty boy.
He deserves what he gets, but I don't want him to do anything drastic like I did, and hopefully he goes to a chippy. But Chris Rock, if you're listening to this, please, mate,
don't
psychotherapy.
Stay off the Singapore fried rice.
And he charges. How much do you charge? Is it £20,000 an hour?
Yeah, about that, Chris. You know, for you, mate, I'd do it for £18,000 an hour. You're a good man. You've made me laugh over the years. 18k to you, fella.
There you go. Thank you very much, Richard, for having me.
Thank you so much. You cited Joe Rogan. We just did 2.5 hours. This is like a Joe Rogan length podcast. So thanks very much for that, mate.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. Ladies and gents, thanks very much for your time and your attention. If you want to find Darren, you're on Twitter under the handle.
I am not on Twitter because the British government stated that in the next 3 to 5 months, they will create a law that if people supposedly said something that was wrong on Twitter, they can be prosecuted. So because of that, I deleted my Twitter last year. So unfortunately, people, there is no way of getting in contact with me.
You have to contact me to contact Darren, and I'll send him a message on WhatsApp. And then if you've got a bunch of questions, I'll file them, and then we'll get Daz in again and we'll do this again.
Thank you very much. I love you all.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.